Well, John Krey is in a very good position to tell us about the benevolence of the coal companies in the Hunter Valley. John.
You've only given me 5 minutes, so I couldn't cover that subject.
Well,
in my view, a representative democracy lasts about 6 weeks every 3 to 4 years. And that is that period leading up to the election, the polling day. History has shown that what a candidate or a political party promises before an election will not be honoured after the election. The reasons stated include, well, the situation was worse than we thought, or we're commissioning an expert panel to review that particular matter, and we'll get back to you. Some candidates who get elected to government become ministers with the responsibility for various portfolios. These ministers, of course, are the target for the lobbyists, who represent large corporations such as the Rio Tintos, Peabodys, etc. So, once in government, the candidate you voted for, and you may recall that on the Central Coast, our recently departed Premier wore a red shirt together with Mr. I forget his name, but he was sent out in disgrace. Begins with an H. Mr. Hutcher, how could I forget that? The red shirt, which had on it, you can't eat coal and you can't drink gas. They were put into power under those promises, and what happened? Nothing. So, once in government, the candidate you voted for becomes an advocate of the non-voting mining companies and the New South Wales Minerals Council. This was all very evident when Barry O'Farrell before last year promised to protect us from coal and gas intrusion. Once in government, nothing of that was delivered. 4 kilometres from where I live in Bulga in the Hunter Valley, we have a very large open cut mine. In 2003, Rio Tinto, in order to get an extension approval through, signed a deed of agreement with the government saying they would set aside these particular areas to preserve endangered ecological communities and also to protect the township of Bulga from noise and dust. They signed that deed, but in 2010, 7 years later, Rio Tinto submitted a new application and they intended to mine through the whole of that area that was to be set aside in perpetuity. And due to their friends in government and despite enormous community pressure, that application was approved in 2012 and the deed was simply set aside. In 2013, our local Progress Association appealed that decision. The Land and Environment Court agreed with our case and overturned the approval. This decision was immediately appealed by Rio Tinto and, to add insult to injury, was joined by the New South Wales State Government. The government, instead of defending the people against a large multi-international company, sided with that international company. However, the Supreme Court found for us and rejected their appeal. After the Land and Environment Court, which changed the rules, there was much wailing and gnashing of teeth from the mining industry. Within 1 week of the Land and Environment Court decision, the chief executive from Rio Tinto flew out from England. He got an immediate audience, I was going to say with the Pope, but it's the equivalent. He got an immediate audience with Barry O'Farrell. We heard of that meeting and immediately applied to O'Farrell's office to get the same meeting, same deal, so that we could offset what Rio Tinto was telling the Premier. The Premier responded in writing he was too busy with other matters. However, we then sought to find ways to get there, to see him. And we found a lobbyist that for $20,000 would get us a meeting with Barry O'Farrell. So that's what we had to pay to get a meeting with the Premier. Needless to say, we didn't meet with the Premier. So, however, Rio Tinto's plans and his meeting was very effective. Rio Tinto then, in conjunction with the State Planning Authority, department led by Minister Hazzard, secretly set about to change the rules of assessment. The government produced the SEP amendment, which made the coal resource the most significant item, so it took away the whole of the balance between the environment, the community and the financial aspects. Sorry, Mike. Took away that. It removed the right of appeal. We had no longer the right of appeal on a merit-based, and that's where we won in the Land and Environment Court. It changed the rules about offsets, so you no longer have like for like. you could take a pine forest anywhere and offset that against the Wallamai pines. They included a deed which nullified the original deed. That original deed that the residents of our village counted upon for protection was simply removed. They also reduced the funding to the Environmental Defenders Office. Now this is the office who set up and who ran the case for us, and they simply removed the funding because it was doing too well. Now in the last couple of months we were made aware, and this is through the investigation into the Parliament and through a whistleblower, that after that Land and Environment Court decision with O'Farrell, the Department of Planning, together with the EPA, met with Rio Tinto's solicitors, Rio Tinto's consultants, and they formed a working group to get around this court judgment, because clearly the department wanted it approved, they were going to make royalties off it, and clearly Rio Tinto had billions of dollars tied up in this extension. And the results of those meetings were the basis of a new planning rules to beat Bulga. So, having been able to change the assessment rules in June this year, Rio Tinto simply resubmitted the same project that 2 courts rejected, because they have a new set of rules under which this new project, which is the same as the old project, will be assessed. So these dishonest government policies aimed at getting approvals for big mining companies, no matter what the social and environmental costs are, and against the community's wishes, is not representative democracy. The community is anxious and uncertain about their future in Bulga. The uncertainty is also dividing the community into those who can sell to the mine and those who can't. Rio Tinto has also embarked upon a demonisation of the Bulga residents. This is this bunch of, and I won't use the terms they use, of parts of the posterior, which say these people in Bulga, these 400 people are costing jobs. And that is the situation they're embarking upon now. They're already buying various houses in Bulga. So this is a company that understands it will get this approval through. So in conclusion, however, should Rio Tinto win this current application and we lose the village of Bulga, the cold dead hand will be ours around Rio Tinto's throat.